Welcome, my dear friends, to this presentation. In this presentation, we'll start with the second half of the third module because in our last class presentations we finished off first half of the third module, that is related to convolution integral, convolutional sum, and properties of convolution and properties of impulse response representation. Now we are now entering into a different type of study, that is so far we were focusing on the signals when the signals are available in the form of time domain, that is we are processing the time domain signals and systems. Now we have to focus our attention onto what is called frequency domain, that is same equations we use to represent be it signal or system or any other actions related to signals and systems. We always were taking time domain approach. Now in this presentation onwards, we are going to show that it is also possible to represent those stuffs in frequency domain. That is, instead of writing x of t, I can write x of omega or x of uh, k, where k is a frequency index. So there are many advantages of representing signals and system equations in frequency domain, which I'll tell whenever the time permits me, whenever explaining down the line. So now for the time being, let us understand the tools for converting the given signals or systems into frequency domain. By the way, the time domain approach is a quite natural approach because almost all signals are available naturally in the form of time, because time is a universal variable for us. We always represent any phenomena, any variable with respect to time. Time is called as universal variable. But there is another way of representing, which starts from what is called Fourier representation. That is, it is all because of one Mr. Joseph Fourier, who did a lot of work in this, who actually initiated the idea, and we will see an insight into Fourier's work, and see how Fourier actually was able to propose what he proposed, and how useful that proposal is as far as today's technology is concerned. So this concept, this presentation, I'm calling it Fourier series theory, study of theoretical concepts of Fourier series. Now we will be discussing only a theory part in this presentation, and problems related numerical discussion will be in the next videos, next class. Okay, now what is Fourier series representation? And by the by, in general, what is Fourier representation of signals? And what are the qualities or uh, kind of properties the signals or systems must possess so that they become eligible for Fourier representations? We'll all study in this discussion. Okay, before we go into those tools for converting time domain to frequency domain signals, let us try to understand the work of Fourier and Fourier himself, and the basics related to understand the further topics. Okay, all the early idea of decomposing a periodic function into sum of simple oscillating functions dates back to 3rd century BC. The Fourier series is named in honor of Jean-Baptiste Joseph Fourier, who made important contribution to the study of trigonometric series. Fourier introduced the series for purpose of solving heat equations in a metal plate, publishing his initial result in his 1807 and publishing Analytical Theory of Heat in 1822. Actually, what happened was Joseph Fourier was the one who showed that any phenomena, any physical phenomena that is periodic in nature, can always be represented by the most basis function, that is sine waves. Sine waves are the most basic uh, functions using which you can represent any other periodic phenomena or function. Uh, it is possible to construct a system in such a way that you can represent a repetitive signal by using many different sine waves and cosine waves of different frequencies and amplitude and phase. To understand what exactly he did, let us first of all go into a kind of thing that happened in Fourier series' life, which is there in this short insight. You can just go through this text once again. Fourier analysis is named after, I'll just read the sentences so that you can just follow it up. Fourier analysis is named after Jean-Baptiste, uh, yes, see, this is what Fourier series is named after Jean-Baptiste Joseph Fourier, who lived in this era, a French mathematician and physicist. While many contributed to the field, Fourier is honored for his mathematical discoveries and insight into the practical usefulness of the technique. Fourier was interested in heat propagation and presented a paper in 1807 to the Institut de France on the use of sinusoids to represent temperature distributions. The paper contained controversial claim that any continuous periodic signal could be represented as a sum of properly chosen sinusoidal waves. Among the reviewers were two history's most famous mathematicians, Joseph Louis Lagrange and Pierre-Simon de Laplace. You may be knowing about these two big people, Lagrange and Laplace. Laplace is the one who under whose name Laplace transform is named. They were the reviewers of his paper. Then what happened? While Laplace and other reviewers voted to publish the paper, Lagrange adamantly protested. For nearly 50 years, Lagrange had insisted that such an approach could not be used to represent signals with the corners, that is discontinuous slopes, such as in square waves. The Institut de France bowed to the prestige of Lagrange and rejected the Fourier's work. It was only after Lagrange died that the paper was finally published some 15 years later. Luckily, Fourier had other things to keep him busy: political activities, expeditions to Egypt with Napoleon, and trying to avoid uh, guillotine after the French Revolution. Uh, okay, finally, who was right? It was a split decision. Lagrange was correct in his assertion that a summation of sinusoids cannot form a signal with a corner, that is, sharp, abrupt change. However, you can get very close, so close that difference between the two has zero energy. In this sense, the Fourier was right, although 18th century science knew little about a concept of energy. This phenomena is now known by the name Gibbs effect. To understand what actually all this mean is that, let us try to do one demonstration. As I said in the beginning of this uh, presentation itself, that it was an idea proposed by Fourier, Joseph Fourier, that any periodic phenomena, be it electrical or non-electrical, can simply be represented by using repeated sine and cosine waves. That is, sine and cosine waves are the basis functions. To explain why sine wave is so important, sine or cosine, they are actually orthogonal signals. They differ in phase by 90 degree. So when I say sine and cosine, they are nearly same type of signals except the phase difference. So why sine wave or cosine wave is so important, you can understand by this demonstration. To start with, let us look into this Fourier series. I'm explaining this Fourier series concept by using this small presentation on square wave. So before that I can do presentation, just try to understand this. Sine and cosine waves can make other functions. The meaning of this is that, as I said, by simply using sine and cosine combinations, you can create any periodic functions or even non-periodic functions as we study later. So to begin with, now only let us focus on periodic functions. Those functions which repeat by itself, those are periodic in nature. So it is possible to construct such periodic functions, periodic signals, simply by the combination of sine and cosine waves. Uh, Here two different sine waves add together to make a new wave. Just see this. Now this is one wave of some frequency, a sine wave of course. This is another wave of higher frequency. I think this is twice the frequency of this, which means that you can uh, you can see, suppose if I start this as take as the instant. Now this is the instant where the two waves starts, for example. Of course, when this wave completes one cycle, this wave completes one cycle plus another cycle. So here, so you can see the timing. So that means this wave is twice the frequency of this wave. First wave is f, second wave is 2 times f. So when you add these two signals, when waveforms, see what happens. You're getting another wave which is also periodic, but it is not sine or not cosine. It is a periodic phenomena. That is, if you add two sine waves of different frequencies, it results in another periodic wave. Adding means instant by instant. At every you take this instant and that instant, whatever is the value, just add it. So it will result in this, like that. At every instant, add this to this, you'll get this. Add this value to this value, you'll get this, like that. You go on adding, so you'll get this phenomena. So now this phenomena will extend it to even slightly higher level. So see what we do. Notation of square wave. I'm sorry. That is the idea of Fourier series. So I think you now almost understood. That is, if I add infinite number of sine waves, it is possible to generate a square wave. In other words, I can, on the conversely, I can tell a square wave contains all these frequency components in it. A square wave contains all these frequency component in it. That is, spectrum of square wave is these sine wave frequencies. Both ways I can tell. Now this is the idea of Fourier series. Let us recapitulate what we by this screen. See, what I said was, I started with the sin x, then I added sin 3x, I got this. Then I added sin 5x, I got this. I added up to sin 39x by 39, I got this. Then if I add 199 sin 199x by 1 day up to frequencies of sine waves, all odd frequencies of sine waves up to sin 199x by 199, I'll get this. Then finally, if I add all the frequency components, odd numbered frequency components up to infinity, what I get is this perfect square wave I can get. So this is what actually Joseph Fourier, this man, actually proposing in his proposal. And this is true because today Fourier is actually regarded as the highest contributor to signal processing. It's only because of that idea signal processing has reached to this level what it is today. Okay, now I want to another practical issue I want to discuss here with you. See, now it is related to power engineering. Okay, now you know how you can construct a square wave using sine wave. That is, you have to add actually this is called as fundamental component sin x, and other all harmonically related sine frequencies, sine waves, harmonically related odd numbered harmonics. So a square wave contains odd numbered harmonics of sine wave. That is, the harmonic relation is nothing but fundamental frequency, whatever square wave frequency, into 3 into 5 into 11 into 101, etc. all odd number times. So this square wave contains all these sine components. Now in power engineering there is a challenge. You might have known about inverters. So basically inverters produce AC power whenever main power fails in our homes and all. We use inverters, no? Using batteries as a power source, we generate main supply from inverter technology. What they do is they will convert DC power available in the battery into normally a square wave AC, which we call as power utility AC. Actually, what AC we produce in a ordinary inverter is always very near square wave output of RMS value 230 volts, frequency 50 hertz. There is always a challenge for a power engineer to generate a pure sine wave of 50 hertz. It is very difficult process to convert a square wave into sine wave. But now this idea, no, this Fourier idea, you can understand what actually is it possible to convert. Now I showed you how to convert a sine wave into square wave. Suppose if you have a square wave of say 50 hertz, is it possible to convert into sine wave? According to this equation, yes. According to this equation, a square wave contains all these frequencies of sine waves, sin x, sin 3x by 3, sin 5x by 5, etc. Now, if I want to convert this square wave into sine wave, what should I do is, I should use a filter. From the square wave source, no, I should use a filter. The filter should only retain the first component and block all other high frequency components. Suppose you have a filter between your square wave source and load, that low pass filter which passes only the fundamental frequency, blocking all other frequencies, then it is possible to get a sine wave output from a square wave inverter. So this idea, I don't think I don't know how much you understood, but this is a big challenge for the power engineer. So they make use of Fourier analysis to convert a square wave into sine wave to in design of filters. To filter all harmonics and retain the only fundamental component, you can convert a square wave into sine wave. This insight I gave just to make you understand the importance of Fourier in various, even in power engineering. Okay, now let us study the mathematics of Fourier in the next slide. Okay, now we'll see Fourier only was discussing in those days about periodic functions. Later, due to many contributors in signal processing, they further extended the work done by Fourier, and finally they concluded that really speaking, any signal which has some conditions that it can obey, that is called Dirichlet conditions. Any signal that obeys the Dirichlet conditions can be represented by using Fourier representations. That is, a signal can be periodic, signal can be non-periodic, signal can be discrete, signal can be discrete and periodic, signal can be discrete and aperiodic. You take any class of the signal, it is possible to represent using Fourier components. That's what the today's technology is all about. Now we have extended the Fourier work in the 18th century up to today's level, where we are able to represent almost all of the signals using Fourier representations, provided those signals satisfy some mathematical conditions like finite number of maximas, minimas, and finite number of discontinuities, and fully integrable properties, etc., etc. So now, okay, to represent in Fourier form, you require formulas, you require tools that convert a time domain signal into appropriate Fourier representations. Now, depending on the signal you are having in hand, there are different tools, different Fourier formulas to apply. You cannot apply same formula to all the class of signals. Okay, now how to classify signals and how to use the different Fourier tools? What I will do is, I will just classify signals initially based on the periodicity property. That is, based on the periodicity property, a signal can be either periodic signal or non-periodic signal. Okay, if I then also depending on time, that is how the signal is defined with respect to time. Again, signal can be continuous in time and signal can be discrete in time. That is, sampled signal can be discrete in time. So based on the periodicity, a signal can be periodic or non-periodic. Based on how it is related to time, a signal can be continuous in time, that is a natural signal, or a sampled version, that is discrete in time. So if I combine these two properties, I can get four classes of signals. To start with, continuous time periodic signal, then continuous time non-periodic signal. Then third way of classification of the signal is discrete time periodic signal, discrete time non-periodic signal. So there are four different signal classes we have encountered already in the time domain representations. For all these four classes, that is continuous time periodic, continuous time non-periodic, discrete time periodic, and discrete time non-periodic, there are four different ways of Fourier tools for converting them into appropriate Fourier representations. So for continuous time periodic signal, we have got what is called continuous time Fourier series, or simply Fourier series, what you are going to study now in this presentation. If the signal is continuous in time but non-periodic, Fourier series doesn't help. We have to use another tool called Fourier transform, an integral formula. Because of the non-periodic nature, you have to use the integral formula in such a way that you will get Fourier representation for a non-periodic signal also, and also it is continuous in time. So you got continuous time Fourier transform, or simply Fourier transform. So Fourier series for continuous time periodic, Fourier transform for continuous time non-periodic. Now if the signal is periodic but discrete in time, then we have got another tool called discrete time Fourier series, DTFS, which is used, the formula or the tool is used to convert a discrete time periodic signal into appropriate Fourier representation in the frequency domain. Now if the signal is non-periodic but discrete, that is sampled version of discrete signal, continuous signal. A non-periodic continuous signal is sampled with the appropriate frequency, so you'll get discrete time signal. So if you want to convert that into Fourier representation, then you have to use a tool called discrete time Fourier transform, DTFT. So there is one more category, a fifth category, which is called DFT, about which I won't talk now. It is some specialized form. We'll discuss more in the end or in the next semester when we discuss digital signal processing. So now we remember only about four signal classes and four different type of Fourier representation. The continuous time Fourier series, or simply Fourier series, continuous time Fourier transform, or simply Fourier transform, discrete time Fourier series, or DTFS, discrete time Fourier transform, or DTFT, of which the most important tools are to start with Fourier series, but even more important is Fourier transform, because most of the signals we handle in signal processing are non-periodic in nature. Therefore, the important tool we often use is Fourier transform. And if you want to digitally process a signal, you have to always discretize a continuous time signal, no? Therefore, most of the signals we handle in signal processing are discrete time, non-periodic. Therefore, another important tool is discrete time Fourier transform. So Fourier transform and discrete time Fourier transform and Fourier series are the most important tools. Discrete time Fourier series is very rarely used, but it is useful when you consider discrete Fourier transform, DFT, the fifth type of Fourier representation, which we will study in the next semester in detail. Okay, this screen only talks about that. Just have a look at the screen text. Just read the text. What I said in oral now is all been printed here on the screen. Just go through that. There are four distinct Fourier representations, each applicable to different signal class. Each applicable to different signal class. The four classes are defined by the periodicity property of a signal and whether the signal is continuous in time or discrete in time. That is, I said no, either periodic or non-periodic, or continuous or discrete. So I will classify into four different types. The first classification, Fourier series, applies to continuous time periodic signals. Then discrete time Fourier series, DTFS, applies to discrete time periodic signals. Then comes Fourier transform, applies to continuous time non-periodic signals. Then comes discrete time Fourier transform, DTFT, applies to discrete time non-periodic signals. So all these four classifications, four way of classifying the signal has been shown in this table in a very neat form. See, relationship between time properties of a signal and appropriate Fourier representations. See here, time, this will talk about time, that is either it is periodic or non-periodic. So okay, this will talk about either continuous time or discrete time. So continuous and periodic Fourier series, that is Fourier, to have a Fourier series representation, signal must be continuous in time as well as periodic. To have Fourier transform representation, signal should be continuous and it is non-periodic. If you want to use discrete time Fourier series representation, the signal must be discrete in time and periodic. If you want to use discrete time Fourier transform tool, then signal must be discrete but non-periodic. I think this table you can easily remember to understand a class of the different signals based on Fourier representation. So this Fourier series, this is where we are now focusing more on in this class and the next video presentations. Fourier series, that is for continuous time and periodic signals like triangular wave, square wave, pulse train, etc., which is both continuous and periodic in nature. Okay, these are the formulas. See, what Fourier said was this: any real, for this is actually trigonometric Fourier series representation for a real periodic signal, like for example a square wave which is periodic and real. X of t can be represented using a constant called a naught, and many cosine waves of frequency k into omega naught, where omega is a fundamental frequency, k is the integer. Then many sine waves of frequencies k into omega naught, where bk is the amplitude of the sine wave and k into omega naught is the frequency. K is the number, omega naught is the fundamental frequency. By adding cosine and sine waves, we can simply construct any periodic waveform. We just saw on demonstration, no? In that we constructed a square wave using only sine waves, isn't it? Sine waves. But in that case, cosine waves were not used, and because square wave was average 0, constant value was 0. So this A naught always represents a constant value or DC value. In that wave, DC value was 0, and we use only sine waves of integer, odd integer frequencies to construct the square wave. So if the signal is any random signal, then you may require even cosine waves to add to sine waves to get that particular signal in periodic. It may be random periodic, but random in the sense it may have any shape but periodic. Then it is possible to construct using cosine and sine, as well as sometimes DC component. This way of representing Fourier is called as trigonometric Fourier series. Here another way of representing signal is this. This is actually complex form, or using complex exponential it is possible to represent a signal x of t is simply nothing but summation of a constant ck into e to the power of j k omega naught t. Here e to the power of j is there, no? So it is called as complex frequency, complex exponential waveform, complex exponential waveform. So it is possible to construct a periodic signal using complex exponential waveform. Therefore, this way of representation is called as complex way of representing Fourier analysis. So here, yeah, analysis is okay. Now here AK and BK are how to find. For example, a signal can be represented using this equation. Now using many cosine waves and sine waves of different frequencies, k into omega naught. K means integer, omega naught is the fundamental frequency. AKs and BKs are the amplitudes of those frequencies. To find the amplitude of those frequencies, you require these formulas. Here A naught, I told you, A naught represents the DC value of a signal. Therefore, you have to find average value of the signal over one time period, because you apply the formula only for a periodic sequence, signal, Therefore, the time period. Over one time period, you simply integrate the waveform and divide by the time base, that is t. You will get its constant. If that value happens to be 0, then we say there is no DC component present in that particular waveform. And AK and BK can be found using these formulas. AK, and this is for the constant BK. Here A naught represents average value or DC value of the signal. So this is how we study Fourier series in maths, I think. In maths, they take x as a variable, whereas in our signal processing, we say this variable as t. We write f of t, or most correctly write x of t. X is our signal and name. It's depend on time, x of t. In maths, they write f of x in our analysis. In maths, we study this. Everywhere variable is x. Okay, same formula has been repeated here. To find the constant an, and to find the constant bn. You can make use of these formulas. So in our x as omega t, or simply t sometimes, or omega is the angular frequency. If you write omega t, it is angle, phase angle. Okay. Also, since time taken for the periodic function x of t to complete one cycle is 2 pi radians, is a time period t seconds. Let us rewrite the expression 1 in above as. So this is how we write in our signal processing. X of t, in the place of f of x, we write x of t, a naught, a constant or a DC value, it is called as. Then cosine, you have to add number of cosine waves of different amplitudes and different frequencies. N omega is a different frequencies, n is an integer number, omega is the fundamental frequency, and also you have to add many sine waves to get the signal. You can construct any periodic function using sum of sine and cosine waves, the Fourier introduced concept. I'm showing Fourier image everywhere, because this, we should be grateful to this man. He propose the particular idea. Okay, now A naught can be found by simply integration of the signal over the one time period. AN can be found by this formula, and BN can be found using this formula. Okay. Now see, this waveform has a DC component. See, for f is equal to 0, there is an amplitude here. See, there is an amplitude. See, amplitude is A into D. A into D, where D is the K by T, a fraction called duty cycle. So amplitude into duty cycle D is nothing but DC value, because it is all values are positive. There are no negative values. No, there is no cancellation. So average value is non-zero. This is what average value of the signal, DC value. Whereas in this waveform, both are square wave. This is a square wave having only positive value. This is a square wave having both positive and negative values, symmetrical square wave. So here average value is 0. You find average value for one cycle, that is from here to here. Its positive area, negative area cancels, no? Therefore average value is 0. There is nothing here. Only fundamental frequency component is there of some amplitude. That is, you can put n is equal to 1 here, and then you will get it. What is the fundamental component? If you put n is equal to 1, A1 is 2a by pi into sine pi by 2. Sine pi by 2 is sine 91, no, it is 1. So the value is 2a by pi. So this value is 2a divided by pi, the first component. Like that, if you increase the frequency, see, one more thing you can see, only odd frequencies are present. See, this waveform was exactly the waveform we demonstrated in the beginning of this lecture. Do you remember? We constructed a square wave using many sine waves, By adding more and more sine waves, we got perfect square wave. This is the exact demonstration of that. See, this is the time domain square wave. This is the frequency component we are talking. We took fundamental frequency of some higher amplitude, then third harmonic we took, then we took fifth harmonic, and so on. These are all harmonic frequencies because they are integer multiples of fundamental. No, see, all even harmonics are zero here because this waveform is a odd signal. No, therefore only odd harmonics are present. F hertz, 3f hertz, 5f hertz, 7f hertz, and 9f, 11f, 13f. If I go on adding up to infinity f, then I'll get perfect square wave. So that is a spectrum. But one thing you note, that as the frequency increases, amplitude keep on decreasing. At very very high frequency, amplitude is small, so small that I can ignore them. But if I ignore them, there are some disturbances in the waveform. If you want to get a perfect waveform, I should not ignore even the smallest amplitude. A very high frequency will have a small amplitude. I should take them also into consideration if I want perfect square wave. This is the problem actually. The bandwidth of this signal is infinite. That's what actually I mean. The bandwidth of the square wave is infinite. If you want to transmit a square wave in a perfect square wave form over a transmission line, the bandwidth of the line should be infinite because it should pass all the frequencies unattenuated. Actually every transmission line has a bandwidth limitation, no? Therefore, whenever you send a square wave over a transmission line, you receive a distorted square wave. It's because of bandwidth limitation. A transmission line having infinite bandwidth will transmit a square wave perfectly without distortion. But such a infinite bandwidth transmission line doesn't exist in nature. Every transmission line has certain finite bandwidth. Okay, now if you take triangular waveform phenomena, this is how the spectrum looks like. It has got f hertz, 3f hertz and 5f hertz, but compared to square wave spectrum, see the spectrum of triangular wave, its amplitude is so small, its amplitude dies very fast because this waveform is very close to sine wave. Compared to this waveform is very close to sine wave. Therefore, its most of the energy is present in fundamental. As the frequency increases, energy of that signal is less and very less compared to square wave. That's why these two waveforms differ each other because of their different spectrum. Likewise, if you take sawtooth frequencies, that is sawtooth wave, that is it increases in like a ramp, then suddenly falls, then again increases like a ramp, suddenly fall. This is sawtooth wave. See how the frequency components are. Actually one cycle, it is zero. There is no average value. Therefore, there is no component in the 0 hertz. All components are alternating components. These are all sine and cosine waves put together. Complex frequencies. They are present in the almost all frequency components are present because this waveform contains both even part and odd part. So this is a rectified sine wave. See the spectrum. So there is a DC value because there is a rectified wave. No, this is the DC value, amount of DC present. This much of DC value is present. See, this is what the big challenge is in power supplies. See, for power supply, whenever you construct, you expect a square wave. I mean, a constant DC. No, do you remember? We always try to filter the rectified sine wave so that we'll get a constant DC. So this is the problem because a filtered wave, which is a rectified waveform, contains a constant DC plus all these frequency components. Now that's why the waveform look like this. Now how to make this waveform perfect DC? You simply eliminate all these frequencies by using a low pass filter. You construct low pass filter in such a way that you pass only DC component, then block all other high frequency component. Then you will get a perfect DC waveform. So this is a big challenge. It is not possible to remove all the AC component 100% so that you get a perfect DC, but we can get very close to a DC. That is, you can filter most of the values, but still some small values of AC component remain. Spectrum, you cannot get a filter which is having brick wall response, where attenuation is almost infinite for frequencies more than 0 hertz, and attenuation is 0 for frequency 0 hertz. It is 0, but for frequencies higher than 0 hertz, it is infinite. You cannot get that kind of filter. No, if you can get that kind of filter, definitely you'll get a perfect DC. This is the way I'm demonstrating the importance of spectrum. So now this is very interesting. See, it's a cosine wave. What is the spectrum of cosine wave? A pure cosine wave. There is only one line. There is neither a DC value nor any high frequency component. See, frequency, whatever frequency is there. No, for example, 50 hertz cosine wave means at 50 hertz all the energy is present and all other energies are 0 because it's a perfect square wave. No, I mean sorry, it's a sine wave or cosine wave. No, so all the energy is present in this particular waveform. For a sine wave, the phase angle is minus 90 degree. For a cosine wave, phase angle is 0 degree, but all the energy is present in that single waveform. It's a single line spectra. Spectrum of this line is, this signal is a line spectra. I think you got some idea about the spectrum now, almost. So this is the time domain representation, this is the frequency domain representation. So this is what actually I was talking. To construct a square wave, you need so many sine waves. To construct a sawtooth wave, you need so many sine waves of different frequencies. To construct a triangular wave, you need only few sine waves, because most of the energy of triangular wave contained in fundamental frequency itself. Compared to square wave, it is easy to reconstruct a triangular wave. To construct a semicircle, you once again require a lot of sine waves and a DC value, because semicircle means it is having all positive values. No, you have to add also the, whereas in all these cases except in this, DC value is required because it is a one-sided wave, whereas here and here DC value is not required because it is a perfect AC wave. Positive negative area are cancel out, so no DC value required. Whereas to construct a semicircle, you require a DC value of 0.8. If you want to semicircle of amplitude 1, you require a DC value of 0.8 and many sine waves and cosine waves. That's how we can construct the original wave. So this is the Euler's formula. You please remember this. E power of j theta is equal to cos theta plus j sin theta. E power of minus j sin theta is cos minus theta, that is cos theta, plus j sin minus theta, that is minus sign comes outside. Therefore, there is a difference in formula. E power of j theta and e power of minus j theta. There is a difference. So e power of j theta means the vector rotates anti-clockwise. E power of minus j theta means vector rotates clockwise. So this minus and positive determines the minus and negative and positive determines the direction of rotation of the vector. Okay, understanding what is the meaning of Euler's identity. So a vector which having amplitude 1 and angle 0, angle theta is rotated. So while rotating, it makes a projection along the x-axis, which is cos theta. Projection along the y-axis, it is called sin theta. So as the position of vector changes, the amplitude of sine and cosine value will keep on changing. That's how we can construct a cosine or sine wave using a rotating vector. We can always write this formula because you can, by rotating a vector, it is possible to generate cosine wave and sine wave. Or on the contrary, you can represent cos theta by using Euler's formula. You can represent sine theta by using Euler's formula. That is, cos theta is cos theta is e to the power of theta and j theta plus e to the power of minus j theta divided by 2. Whereas this is cos theta. Whereas sin theta is e to the power of j theta minus e to the power of minus j theta divided by 2j. Remember this. I didn't write the formula here. I'm sorry. Please write down the formulas. The first formula is this itself. E power of j theta is equal to cos theta plus j sin theta. The second formula is e power of minus j theta is cos theta plus minus j sin theta. And on the contrary, if you want to represent cos theta using Euler's identity, cos theta is e power of j theta plus e power of minus j theta divided by 2. Sin theta in Euler's form is sin theta is equal to e power of j theta minus e power of minus j theta divided by 2j. Please write these formulas and you will use them in the problem solutions as we discuss in the next video. And for the time being, goodbye, and we'll again meet in the next video.